Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story, Chapter 1. Logan Pierce stepped out of the taxi and into the quiet suburban night, his heart thudding with anticipation. After months overseas on deployment, he finally stood at the end of his own driveway, home earlier than expected. Under the golden glow of the street lamp, he adjusted his duffel bag over one shoulder and smoothed the wrinkles on his uniform jacket. In his other hand, he carried a bouquet of pale pink roses, Emily's favorite. He pictured her face lighting up with joy and surprise when she saw him. That image alone had kept him going through countless lonely nights in the desert. With a deep breath, Logan pushed open the front gate, eager to finally hold his wife in his arms again. The house was dark except for a faint glow upstairs. Strange, he thought. It was nearly midnight. Emily usually left a light on downstairs when she expected him, especially knowing he might call from base. Logan quietly stepped up to the front door and found it unlocked. His brow furrowed. Emily was usually careful about security. A sliver of unease crept into his excitement. He slowly turned the knob and slipped inside, determined not to spoil the surprise if she was still awake. Inside, the house was silent, except for a muffled sound from above. Logan halted in the dim entryway. At first it was faint. He wondered if he was imagining it after so many months of listening for danger in the field. But then he heard it clearly, a soft, drawn-out moan filtering down from the master bedroom. He froze, every muscle taut. His mind tried to rationalize. It could be the television, or maybe Emily having a nightmare. But no, it was her voice. And it was not a sound of pain or fear. It was pleasure. A chill ran down Logan's spine. He gently set the duffel and the bouquet on the floor beside the hallway table, his instincts kicking in. Years of military service had trained him to move silently, even in full gear. Heart pounding in his ears, he crept toward the stairs, each footstep placed with care on the wooden steps to avoid any creak. The closer he got to the top, the clearer the noises became. The rhythmic creaking of the bed, low murmurs and gasps. A man's hushed voice he did not recognize at first, followed by another delicate moan from Emily that made Logan's stomach twist. On the landing, a faint line of warm light spilled from the half-ajar bedroom door. Logan's mind raced in denial. This cannot be what it sounds like. He felt detached from his own body as he approached that slice of light. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever. His pulse thundered in his temples. A bead of sweat traced down his brow despite the cool night air. He reached the door and, for a moment, squeezed his eyes shut, almost unable to face what lay beyond. He prayed he was wrong about the sounds. Slowly, he inched the door open a few more inches and peered inside. The world tilted beneath him. There, on their bed, the bed he had shared with his wife for 5 years, was Emily. She was tangled in the sheets, bare skin glowing in the soft lamplight, head thrown back on the pillows. Another body moved atop hers, a man's broad shoulders and muscular back flexing as he pressed her into the mattress. Logan's breath caught in his throat. It was as if he had been shot. A white-hot pain exploded in his chest. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. His throat locked up as he watched in horror. Emily's fingers dug into the man's back, her wedding band glinting cruelly at Logan like a taunt. He could not tear his eyes away. The other man shifted slightly, and Logan caught a glimpse of his face in profile, just enough to recognize him. Logan's heart somehow broke further. It was Jason, his closest friend and squad mate from the army. The man he had trusted like a brother. The man who had promised to check in on Emily while Logan was deployed. Now that same man was in Logan's bed, committing the ultimate betrayal. A red haze of fury and anguish clouded Logan's vision. His hand on the doorframe trembled. Inside the room, Emily gasped, oblivious to her husband's presence just feet away. "Jason, do not stop," she whispered breathlessly, the words stabbing into Logan's soul. He felt his knees threaten to buckle. It took every ounce of discipline he had not to burst into that room and tear Jason off of her. For a brief, dangerous second, Logan's mind flashed to the sidearm secured in his duffel downstairs, his military-issued pistol. Violent images flared, confronting them, the rage-fueled urge to make them feel his pain. Logan swallowed hard, his mouth bone-dry. His training hammered in his head. Keep your cool, assess the situation. But how could he remain calm watching the love of his life with someone he had considered a brother? His chest heaved with each shallow breath, the betrayal cutting deeper than any battlefield wound. A hot tear escaped the corner of his eye as reality set in fully. This was not a nightmare or some terrible misunderstanding. It was real. Emily was cheating on him at this very moment, in their own home. He backed away a half step, unable to bear any more. The door creaked softly as he moved, and for an instant Emily's eyes flicked open, turning toward the sound. Logan flattened himself against the shadowed hallway wall, heart hammering. Through the crack, he saw her pause, mid-breath, perhaps sensing something. His own heart seemed to stop as he waited, hidden by the darkness. After a heartbeat, Jason murmured something to her and pulled her back into a kiss, and Emily closed her eyes again, dismissing the noise. Logan realized he had been holding his breath and cautiously exhaled. This was his breaking point. Logan knew if he stayed a second longer, his restraint would shatter. With one last, devastated glance through the gap, Emily's face flushed with ecstasy that was not for him. Logan finally tore himself away. He retreated down the hallway on unsteady legs, his mind numb and vision blurred with tears he refused to let fully fall. At the top of the stairs, he paused. From below, the bouquet of roses caught his eye, lying where he had set it down. The delicate pink petals were already wilting in the dark. A hard lump formed in his throat as he realized the cruel irony. He had come home bearing tokens of love, only to find that love betrayed. For a moment, Logan simply stood there, the distant sounds of his wife's infidelity continuing to torture his ears. His world had collapsed in the span of a few heartbeats. The man who had stared down death without fear now felt utterly broken and lost. He wiped the single tear from his cheek with a shaky hand and steeled himself. This was not the time or place to confront them. If he walked into that bedroom now, God only knew what he might do. Logan forced himself to swallow the bitter bile rising in his throat. His face hardened into a cold, vacant mask even as inside he was screaming. Without a word, without a sound, Logan descended the stairs, leaving the betrayal unfolding upstairs undisturbed. He stepped around the fallen roses, not trusting himself to pick them up. Each step away from that door was agony, but he kept moving, driven by a survival instinct of a different kind. In the silent darkness of the foyer, Logan grabbed his duffel bag with white-knuckled fingers. He cast one last haunted look up toward the bedroom, where muffled moans continued, then slipped out the front door into the night, closing it behind him with the softest click. Outside, under the vast and different sky, Logan stood on the porch trembling. His mind could barely process what he had just witnessed. The life he thought he knew was gone. As a cool breeze hit his face, drying the wetness in his eyes, one thought burned itself into Logan's consciousness with searing clarity. Nothing would ever be the same again. Before we move ahead, I just want to say, your support truly means everything. We're building something special here, and our next big goal is reaching 10,000 incredible subscribers. If you're feeling the emotions in these stories, imagine what's still to come. Subscribe now, be part of this amazing journey, and let's keep growing together. Your one click can make a real difference. Let's continue the story. Logan forced one foot in front of the other as he left the house behind, each step heavy as lead. The autumn night was cool and eerily calm. The contrast between the quiet outside and the turmoil raging inside him was almost too much to bear. He felt as if he was moving through a dream or a nightmare. his body operating on autopilot while his mind was trapped replaying the scene he had just witnessed. Reaching his truck parked down the street, Logan fumbled the keys with unsteady hands. For a moment, he simply leaned against the driver's side door, fingers pressed against the cool metal, and squeezed his eyes shut. His chest was heaving now, breath coming in irregular gulps as he grappled to contain the cyclone of emotions within. In the silence of the sleeping neighborhood, Logan could hear his own heartbeat thudding in his ears. The memory of Emily's voice, "Jason, do not stop," echoed relentlessly in his head, each replay like a fresh dagger to the heart. He clenched his jaw so hard it ached, trying to will the images away. Emily's flushed face, Jason's hands on her, the sheets twisting around their entwined bodies. A tremor ran through him. How could everything he cherished be destroyed in a single night? How could two people he trusted so deeply do this to him? Logan yanked the truck door open and climbed inside, throwing his duffel bag onto the passenger seat. The familiar scent of the vehicle, faintly of old leather, and the pine air freshener Emily had hung from the mirror, engulfed him. That small reminder of her hit him like a punch. He ripped the little tree-shaped freshener down and hurled it into the back seat, his breathing ragged. As he jammed the key into the ignition, he caught a glimpse of himself in the rearview mirror. In the dim light, his face looked foreign to him, pale, drawn, eyes shining with anguish and a growing fury. He barely recognized this broken man staring back. The engine roared to life, and Logan gripped the steering wheel with both hands. For a long moment, he did not move. He just sat there in the dark cab, engine idling, staring blankly through the windshield. His mind was blank and racing all at once, a sensation he recalled from combat, when shock and adrenaline mix into a numbing cocktail. The difference was, on the battlefield, he had a mission to focus on. Here, in the quiet of his truck, there was nothing to distract from the pain. A hot tear slid down his cheek before he could stop it. Logan slammed a palm on the steering wheel in frustration, the sharp honk of the horn cutting through the silence. That jolt spurred him to action. Blinking rapidly to clear his vision, he threw the truck into gear and pulled away from the curb. He did not have a destination in mind. He just knew he had to get away, away from that house, away from the betrayal seared into his memory. Streetlights and houses swept by in a blur as he drove aimlessly through the neighborhood. His hands were shaking on the wheel, knuckles bloodless from his grip. Every few seconds a new wave of emotion would wash over him. One minute his eyes burned with tears, the next his teeth were grit with raw anger. A couple of blocks from home, Logan saw a stop sign too late and braked hard, the truck screeching to a halt. He realized his vision was swimming. Panic prickled at the edges of his mind. He should not be driving like this. With a shuddering sigh, he pulled over onto the shoulder of a deserted side road. The truck's tires crunched on gravel as he came to a stop under the shadow of a large oak tree. Logan killed the engine. In the sudden stillness, the only sound was his ragged breathing. Darkness pressed in around him. Logan pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, squeezing his eyes shut. And then, alone in the safety of his truck cab, he finally let go. A guttural cry tore from his throat, raw and low, as weeks of anticipation and hope curdled into heartbreak and despair. He pounded the heel of his hand against the steering column once, twice, the pain jolting up his arm, but barely registering compared to the agony in his chest. Tears came hot and unbidden, sliding down his face and dripping onto his uniform sleeves. Images of Emily flashed in his mind, her smiling up at him on their wedding day, waving goodbye with tears in her eyes when he deployed last spring, the tender moments on his last leave, when she had clung to him and whispered she would wait for him. Lies. All of it, now tainted by what he saw tonight. He wondered bitterly how long it had been going on. How many times had Jason been in his home, in his bed, with his wife, while Logan was thousands of miles away fighting to come home to her? A fierce snarl curled his lip at the thought. He had been so blind. Eventually, the storm of sobs subsided into silence. Logan wiped his face with the back of his hand. His eyes felt swollen and gritty, but a strange calmness began to creep in, an exhaustion more than true calm, the kind that comes after a breakdown. He slumped back in the driver's seat, staring up at the faint stars peeking through the leafy canopy above. As a child, he used to count stars to calm himself on restless nights. Now he found no comfort in them, only a distant reminder that his problems were small on the cosmic scale. It did not make the pain any less. Minutes passed, or perhaps hours, he was not sure. The shock had dulled, and in its place a heavy numbness settled. Logan knew he could not stay parked on the side of the road forever. Morning would come in a few hours, and then what? He could not go back to that house. He could not face Emily. Not tonight. Maybe not ever, he thought with a surge of anger. The idea of confronting them now, in the heat of betrayal, felt impossible. He feared what he might do if he saw them again so soon. Sniffling once, Logan drew a long, shaky breath and tried to think clearly. He needed somewhere to go, at least for the night. He thumbed on his phone screen reflexively and saw the wallpaper photo of him and Emily at the beach last summer, smiling and carefree. His gut twisted, and he quickly clicked the screen off, unable to bear it. There were unread text notifications, but he did not check them. He did not want to see any message from her, pretending everything was fine. In fact, Logan powered the phone all the way down and tossed it aside. He wanted isolation, not sympathy or lies. Then it hit him. The cabin. His family had a small cabin up north in the mountains, tucked away by a lake. It had been his grandfather's fishing retreat and later a getaway for Logan's parents. Now it mostly sat unused except for the occasional weekend when Logan needed a quiet place to clear his head. If there was ever a time he needed that cabin, it was now. There, he could be alone, truly alone, to figure out what remained of his life. Logan started the truck again, now with a purpose forming. The cabin was about a 2-hour drive. He welcomed the distance. It meant 2 hours of driving away from the nightmare he left behind. He eased back onto the road, turning onto the state highway that led out of town. The tires hummed against the asphalt as he accelerated, the darkened city giving way to open road. As he drove through the night, the sky began to weep lightly as well. A drizzle of rain splattered against the windshield. Logan flicked on the wipers, watching them swish back and forth. In the red glow of his tail lights on the wet road and the rhythmic thump of the wipers, he found a strange focus. His breathing steadied. His tears had dried, leaving tracks of salt on his cheeks. Now his eyes were fixed ahead, staring into the darkness with a hardened resolve that had not been there an hour ago. He still hurt. God, did it hurt. But beneath the pain something else was simmering, a cold, steely anger. Not the wild, explosive rage that had nearly consumed him back at the house, but a quieter sort of fury, coiled deep in his gut like a snake. Logan's jaw set as he gripped the wheel. Emily's betrayal, Jason's betrayal, were not wounds that would heal easily. He knew that. Trust once shattered is almost impossible to restore. Lightning flickered in the distant clouds on the horizon, and thunder growled softly a few miles off. Logan's lips pressed into a thin line. As the rain fell and the road rolled under his headlights, he made himself a silent promise. He would get through this night. He would survive the heartbreak, just as he had survived every hellish situation life threw at him before. And someday, he did not know when or how, he would make sure that the people who did this to him answered for it. With that thought echoing in his raw, exhausted mind, Logan drove on through the darkness. The small clock on the dash read 2:47 a.m. Dawn was still a long way off, but he kept driving, heading toward the only refuge he had left, determined to put as much distance as possible between himself and the pain that dwelled back in that quiet suburban house. The rain had tapered off to a mist by the time Logan turned onto the narrow gravel road that led to his family's remote cabin. Dawn was just beginning to lighten the sky in the east, painting the low-hanging fog in hues of blue and gray. After the long, dark drive, the change in light felt jarring to Logan, morning arriving as if it were any normal day. But nothing was normal now. He spotted the familiar shape of the cabin ahead, tucked between towering pines. It was a modest wooden structure with a small front porch and a stone chimney. Logan parked the truck beside an old woodpile, cut the engine, and sat in silence for a moment. The world here was utterly still except for the distant call of a morning bird and the drip of water from the trees. No people, no houses for miles. It was as isolated as one could get, and that was exactly what he needed. Logan stepped out of the truck. The chilly mountain air was damp and smelled of pine needles and wet earth. He grabbed his duffel bag from the passenger seat and quietly shut the door. Gravel crunched under his boots as he approached the front door. He had not been here in nearly a year, but nothing about the place had changed. Under the mat was the spare key, just where it had always been. His hand shook as he tried to fit the key into the lock. After a couple of fumbles, he managed to turn it and push the door open. The hinges gave a drawn-out creak into the darkness inside. Logan reached in and flicked the light switch, half expecting the bulb to be dead. A single lamp in the living area flickered to life, casting a weak yellow glow. Dust motes danced in the air. The cabin's interior was just one open room with a small kitchen corner, a sofa and armchair by a cold stone fireplace, and a cot-like bed tucked to the side. Sheets covered the furniture to keep off dust. It felt untouched, like a time capsule of simpler days. Logan closed the door behind him and stood still, listening to the silence. Here, at last, he was alone with his thoughts. He set his duffel down on the wooden floor. For a moment he simply breathed, taking in the familiar scent of aged wood and old fireplace ash. This cabin held so many childhood memories. Winters when his dad taught him to build a fire in that very hearth. Summers fishing with his grandfather at the nearby lake. It had always been a place of warmth, safety, and family. Now it was a refuge for a man whose sense of family had been ripped away. Fatigue crashed over Logan all at once. The adrenaline that had fueled him through the night ebbed, leaving him drained to the bone. He realized he had not slept in over 24 hours, aside from a nap on the military transport plane earlier. Every muscle ached, and his eyes burned. He walked to the old sofa and pulled the dusty sheet off, sending a puff into the air. Tossing the sheet aside, he sank down onto the firm cushions. A heavy sigh escaped him as he leaned his head back. The quiet was oddly loud. In it, his mind threatened to replay terrible memories again. He was too tired to fight it anymore. He toed off his boots and lay back on the sofa fully, staring up at the rustic timber beams of the ceiling. The events of the night felt surreal now, as if his mind wanted to reject them. But whenever he closed his eyes, he saw Emily and Jason together, so vivid it could have been happening right in front of him. Eventually, sheer exhaustion allowed him a brief escape. Logan's eyes drifted shut as sleep overtook him, pulling him down into darkness. It was not a restful sleep. Barely an hour later, Logan jolted awake with a sharp gasp. His heart was hammering against his ribcage, and it took a panicked second for him to remember where he was. The cabin. Safe, alone. Early sunlight now peeked through the curtained window, casting gentle beams across the room. But Logan's mind was still half-trapped in the nightmare that woke him, a nightmare of Emily. He rubbed his hands over his face, trying to wipe away the lingering images. In the dream it had been just like last night. He opened his bedroom door to find Emily in another man's arms. Except this time, she had turned and seen him. In the dream, her face morphed into a cruel smile as she laughed at him, and Jason had stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder in a sickening display of ownership. They were happy together, and they looked at Logan with pity and scorn. He shuddered and sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Get a grip," He muttered to himself, angry that even in sleep he found no peace. He swung his legs off the couch and planted his feet on the floor, elbows on his knees and head in his hands. The ache in his chest was still there, a heavy weight that seemed to have settled permanently. But with the new day's light, the shock was beginning to wear off, leaving something colder and harder in its place. Logan knew one thing for certain now. What he witnessed last night was no nightmare and no hallucination. It was real. Emily had betrayed him in the deepest way imaginable. Jason had betrayed him as well. They had shattered the life he thought he had. There was no going back to how things were before, no fixing this. The marriage he had cherished, the friendships and trust, those were gone, burned to ash by what they had done. That realization washed over him fully now in the quiet cabin. Logan let out a long breath, feeling tears prick his eyes again. He had loved Emily with all of his heart. He had imagined building a family with her in the coming years, growing old together. All those dreams were now lying in pieces. It felt a lot like mourning a death. In a way, he realized, it was a death, the death of the life he knew, the death of the man he had been up until yesterday. He stood up, restless, and wandered to the small window. Pulling aside the curtain, Logan gazed out at the landscape. The lake was visible through the trees, its surface smooth as glass under the pastel morning sky. A thin veil of mist clung to the water's edge. The scene was so calm, so indifferent to human sorrows. He almost envied the tranquility of that lake. He wished he could toss his heartbreak into its depths and watch it sink out of sight. As he looked out, Logan felt a subtle shift inside himself. The despair was still there, yes, but alongside it now was a growing resolve. Emily's actions had hurt him more deeply than anything ever had, but he was not destroyed. Not yet. He had survived war zones, seen brothers in arms fall, endured pain and loss. This was a different kind of battle, one fought in the heart and mind, but he would survive it too. The alternative was to let it consume him entirely, and that he refused to do. His eyes drifted to the reflection in the window pane, his own face set in grim lines. He hardly looked like the jovial man who had been excitedly planning his homecoming surprise a day ago. That man was gone. What remained was a version of Logan who had nothing left to lose. And a man with nothing to lose, he thought darkly, is capable of anything. He realized his hands had curled into fists at his sides. His fingernails bit into his palms, grounding him back to the present. Logan inhaled deeply through his nose and exhaled, fogging the window glass slightly. He needed a clear head. The initial shock and grief were giving way now to cold, angry clarity. Logan knew he would have to confront Emily eventually. He could not hide out here forever, but he would do it on his terms, when he decided the time was right. There were practical matters, his belongings, the house, the marriage itself, to deal with. The thought of seeing her or Jason now made his blood boil, but also steeled his resolve. He would not confront them as a sobbing, broken victim. No, when he faced them next, it would be with control. He would not let emotions cloud his judgment or give either of them the satisfaction of seeing him shattered. A faint thud drew his attention. His duffel bag, where it leaned against the wall, had shifted and fallen on its side, likely settling after he had dropped it. Logan walked over and knelt to upright it. The bag contained everything from his deployment, clothes, gear, personal items. With a deliberate calm, he unzipped a side compartment and pulled out a small black case. Clicking it open, he stared at the disassembled pieces of his sidearm nestled within. He always brought his service pistol home out of habit, though he rarely carried it off base. For a long moment, Logan studied the cold metal parts. He thought of how close he had been last night to storming in with this gun blazing in hand. It would have been so easy in the fury of the moment to let loose all that hurt in a burst of violence. Many might have, and perhaps no jury would have faulted a man in his position. But Logan was glad he had walked away. That was not how he wanted this to play out. If there was to be retribution, and in his gut he knew there would be, it needed to be precise and without remorse, not a crime of passion that would land him in a jail cell for life. Jason and Emily did not deserve his freedom as a sacrifice. They deserved something far more fitting. Logan closed the pistol case and set it aside. The fact he could think about consequences at all meant he was moving past the initial haze of emotional shock. His mind was sharpening, turning things over slowly. Questions bubbled up. How long had they been sneaking around? Did others know? Were there signs he missed all along? Each question hurt, but he forced himself to face them, piece by piece, as if assessing a mission objective. This was part of confronting the truth, laying out the facts of what had happened to him, no matter how ugly. He walked to the fireplace and absently began arranging kindling and logs from the stack beside it. His body moved on autopilot, performing the familiar task while his mind sifted through painful recollections. He recalled the odd moments from his last deployment. Emily had sounded distant in a couple of their phone calls. And Jason had been oddly enthusiastic in offering to help keep an eye on things at home for him. Logan had brushed off any niggling doubts, blaming it on deployment stress. He had trusted them both completely. In hindsight, the betrayal seemed almost obvious, and that realization made his blood simmer anew. With the firewood arranged, Logan struck a match and lit the crumpled newspaper under the tinder. Flames eagerly licked up, casting a warm glow that slowly spread through the cabin's chill. He crouched before the growing fire, watching the logs catch. As the first real heat began to emanate, he felt a grim satisfaction. There was something symbolic in lighting a fire in this hearth, a new flame in the ashes of what his life had been. As he stood and stepped back from the now crackling fire, Logan knew this was just the beginning. Here in this quiet sanctuary, he had allowed himself to feel every ounce of pain, to acknowledge the death of the life he once knew. It hurt like hell, and it probably would for a long time. But each passing minute replaced a bit more of that pain with resolve. He tightened his jaw and straightened his shoulders, feeling the warmth of the fire at his back. Emily and Jason likely had no idea that he knew of their treachery. They probably thought they had gotten away with it, at least for now. That thought no longer brought tears to his eyes. Instead, it brought the ghost of a cold smile to his lips. They were living in blissful ignorance of the storm that was coming for them. Logan Pierce was done being the victim of their story. He was a soldier, forged in adversity, and he would not crumble. They had wounded him, yes, deeply, but he was still standing. And as he gazed into the growing flames, he silently vowed that he would make them regret ever mistaking his patience and love for weakness. Whatever form his next steps took, they would be on his terms. Here, in the solitude of the cabin, Logan had begun to confront the full depth of Emily's betrayal and Jason's deceit. And in doing so, he had taken the first step on a new path, one paved with heartache, yes, but also with a cold determination. The sun continued to rise outside, burning away the last of the morning mist, as Logan prepared himself for the long and difficult road ahead. The old Logan was gone. In his place stood a man ready to take back control, no matter what it might cost. Logan sat alone at the dining table, the first gray light of dawn creeping through the curtains. He had not slept all night. His eyes were bloodshot and fixed on a pile of financial statements and bank records strewn across the polished wooden surface. The air felt heavy as he pieced through each document slowly, methodically, fighting the tremor in his hands. A deep ache pulsed behind his temples, but he refused to rest until he uncovered whatever truth lay hidden in these numbers. He pushed aside the tormenting images of Brielle entwined with another man in their bed. That memory stabbed at him relentlessly, but now a new suspicion gnawed at his mind. Logan's instincts, honed by years in the military, told him that something did not add up. Infidelity was painful enough, yet hints of another betrayal had started to surface in the aftermath. He needed answers. Under a dim lamp, Logan sifted through months of bank statements line by line. At first, everything appeared mundane. Grocery store purchases, household bills, the usual expenses of married life. But as he flipped further back, strange transactions began to emerge like dark stains on an otherwise ordinary ledger. A $5,000 withdrawal here, an expensive jewelry purchase there, items he did not recall buying. Logan's jaw tightened as he circled each suspect charge in red pen. He was always careful with money, and Brielle had never been an impulsive spender during their marriage. So why were there multiple transfers of large sums out of their joint savings account in recent months? One transfer in particular made his blood run cold. A month ago, $10,000 had been wired to an unknown account overseas. The recipient's name was one he did not recognize, Ravenel Holdings Limited. Logan whispered it under his breath as if speaking it aloud might conjure meaning. His heart pounded. Why would Brielle send such a hefty sum to a company he had never heard of? A sickening possibility formed in his mind. Logan's hands clenched into fists on the table as he considered that Brielle might have been funneling money away behind his back. He remembered how just last week she had encouraged him to deposit his year-end military bonus into their joint account for the future. At the time it seemed reasonable, a gesture of trust and planning together. Now he wondered if that had been a calculated move on her part, to capture more funds before her betrayal came to light. The more Logan dug, the more the financial inconsistencies piled up. There were credit card statements with charges at luxury boutiques in cities where neither of them had traveled, at least, not together. Brielle had claimed a girls' weekend 2 months ago for a spa retreat. Logan now saw a charge from that same weekend for a high-end electronics store, far from any spa. It looked like someone bought an expensive laptop. He raked a hand through his short-cropped hair in frustration. Had she been equipping herself for something he knew nothing about? Perhaps creating a new life in secret? His breathing grew ragged as he uncovered evidence of a separate bank account in Brielle's name only. A statement showing a balance of tens of thousands of dollars had been tucked away in the back of their filing cabinet, as if accidentally misplaced. Logan recalled stumbling across it during a frantic search through the office earlier that night. He had stared at that statement, disbelief turning into rage. Brielle had never mentioned this account, and there was no good reason for such secrecy, unless she had planned on leaving him and taking everything. Logan rose from the table and paced the living room in the faint morning light. His mind raced, replaying the last few months for clues he might have missed. Brielle had become distant recently, but he assumed it was work stress or the strain of his own deployments. Now he saw the pattern. Her coming home late from her office job at the local bank with vague excuses, her guarded phone calls that she took in the other room, the extra hours spent on her laptop late at night. At the time, he had given her space, trusting her completely. That trust now felt like a knife in his back. Pausing by the fireplace mantel, Logan looked at their wedding photo, a captured memory of happier times. Brielle's radiant smile and Logan's proud gaze as they held each other on that sunny day. How much of it had been real? Was she in love then? Or was she already calculating her gains? Logan's throat tightened at the thought that his entire marriage could have been a lie orchestrated for some personal gain. It was almost too much to bear, but he forced himself to confront it head-on. He returned to the table, determination hardening his features. If Brielle had thought she could pull the wool over the eyes of a trained military officer, she was gravely mistaken. Logan decided he would treat this like a mission, gather intelligence, verify facts, and proceed with a plan. His love for her had been genuine, but now that love was curdling into something else, a mix of sorrow, fury, and a desperate need for justice. Near the bottom of the stack of papers, Logan discovered an odd invoice for a private investigator's services. It was dated only a week before. Confusion flickered across his face as he realized neither he nor Brielle had reason to hire a PI, at least not that he knew of. Was Brielle spying on him? Or someone else? The invoice listed a client reference number and a balance due, seemingly paid in full using funds from that mysterious account of hers. Logan's stomach lurched. Why would Brielle need a PI unless she was digging up dirt for an upcoming divorce? Perhaps to find grounds to take more from him in court? The pieces were slowly falling into place, but each new piece made the picture uglier. Logan set the papers aside and opened his laptop with a resolve as cold as the dawn outside. If there was more to find, he would find it. He logged into their shared credit monitoring service, something they had set up together to guard against identity theft. Ironically, it now served to expose his wife's deceit. Immediately, a recent query on his credit report caught his attention. A mortgage pre-approval in his name for a property in Brielle's hometown across the country. He had never applied for such a thing. Brielle's hometown. Did she plan to relocate and buy a house after ruining him? Maybe a love nest for her and that other man, funded by Logan's credit and savings. His heart hammered with a mixture of anger and panic. This was no impulsive affair. It was a premeditated betrayal, deeply financial and utterly calculated. Logan's vision blurred for a moment as red-hot anger coursed through him, but he quickly brought himself back to focus. He had faced worse under enemy fire. He would handle this with the same steady resolve. Clenching his fists, Logan realized that Brielle's betrayal went far beyond broken vows. It was a full-fledged assault on his life and future. She had not only violated his heart, but also threatened his financial security and trust. He inhaled deeply, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside him. There would be no confrontation with Brielle about this. Not yet. If she was hiding so much, confronting her now might only drive her further into deception or danger. Instead, Logan needed to quietly continue his investigation. He needed to find out who was helping her, because clearly Brielle had not done all of this alone. As the sun began to rise, casting a cold light on the disarray of documents before him, Logan's resolve hardened like steel. He would uncover every last secret his wife had kept, and when he had the full truth, God help those who had betrayed him. Logan's eyes narrowed at the thought. This mission had just begun. The early morning investigation had unearthed more questions than answers. Logan stood by the kitchen counter, sipping coffee that had long gone cold as he stared out the window. The ache in his chest was transforming into a sharp, focused resolve. Brielle's betrayal clearly ran deeper than infidelity, and he was determined to peel back every layer. To do that, he had to find out who else was involved. She could not have orchestrated all of this alone. His gaze drifted to a small item on the counter, a leather wallet, scuffed and weathered at the edges. It was not his. Logan picked it up, feeling its weight in his palm. In the chaos of that night, when he had caught Brielle in their bed with another man, this wallet had fallen out of the scoundrel's pants pocket as he hastily fled. Logan had snatched it up on impulse, but in the turmoil that followed, he had tossed it aside. Now it was a goldmine of information waiting to be mined. Under the kitchen's bright light, Logan flipped open the wallet. His heart thumped as he pulled out a driver's license encased in plastic. The photo showed a handsome face with a smug smile, the same face he had seen contorted with shock that fateful night. The name printed below the photo read, Marcus Everett Cole. Logan narrowed his eyes, committing the name to memory. He pulled out a couple of credit cards, all bearing the same name, and a business card tucked in a side pocket. The business card was glossy black with minimal text. It read, Cole Investments LLC, Marcus Cole, financial consultant. Logan almost laughed at the irony, a bitter, humorless chuckle. A financial consultant getting involved with his banker wife and possibly her illicit money transfers? It felt too coincidental to be innocent. More likely, Marcus's consulting gig was a front for something far more corrupt. Logan powered on his laptop once more, adrenaline supplanting the need for sleep. With methodical precision, he began searching for any information on Marcus Cole and Cole Investments LLC. Within minutes, Search results revealed a sparse company website, just a single page with vague promises of wealth management and no client testimonials or team information. That alone raised a red flag. Legitimate businesses usually had more presence. He dug deeper, finding a mention in a financial forum that Cole Investments had been suspected of being a shell company involved in pump-and-dump stock schemes. Logan's jaw set tightly. Brielle had brought a man like this into their home, into his life. He leaned back, mind racing. Marcus clearly ran in circles where deceit was a way of life. And Brielle had been entangled with him. Whether she was the mastermind or just a player in his game was still unclear, but Logan suspected she was more than a mere victim of seduction. The evidence of her careful planning suggested an equal partnership in wrongdoing. Still, a small part of Logan hoped, irrationally, that maybe Marcus had manipulated her somehow. That perhaps she fell under the sway of a con man. It would not excuse her actions, but it might mean the woman he married was not entirely a mirage. He clenched his fists, dispelling the thought. He could not afford that kind of sympathy now. Not when Brielle's actions were so deliberate. Logan decided to reach out for help. As much as he trusted his own skills, he knew the value of intelligence from the right sources. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found a familiar name, Sergeant David Holloway, an old Army buddy who had transitioned into private security work after his service. If anyone could quietly find background information on a person or sniff out connections, it was David. Within a few rings, a groggy voice answered, "Logan? It is barely 6 a.m. Is everything all right?" Logan took a breath, steadying himself. "David, I am sorry for the early call. I would not bother you if it was not important." His voice was low and brimming with restrained tension. "I need a favor. Off the record." David was quiet for a moment, now fully awake, sensing the seriousness in Logan's tone. "Name it," he replied simply. "There is a man named Marcus Everett Cole. I need to know who he is, any dirt you can find. And fast," Logan said, pacing the length of the kitchen. "He has gotten involved with my wife, and I have reason to believe he is part of something much worse than an affair." A soft curse came through the line. "Damn, Logan. I am sorry to hear that." David's sympathy was genuine, but he moved quickly to business. "Text me whatever details you have, that name, any address, the company if you have it. I will run it through some databases quietly." "Thank you," Logan said, closing his eyes in relief. "And David, please, keep this between us. I do not know how far this goes yet." "You have my word," David assured before hanging up. With that in motion, Logan felt a surge of momentum. He could not just sit and wait idly, so he decided to do some field work of his own. Marcus's driver's license listed an address across town in an upscale apartment complex. Logan recalled that area. It was a trendy part of the city with expensive lofts, a place someone running cons might live to keep up appearances. He decided to pay it a visit. If nothing else, he might glean more about Marcus's lifestyle, or even catch Marcus himself. Morning traffic was light as Logan drove across the city, but his mind was anything but calm. Each red light was an agony, his fingers tapping impatiently on the steering wheel. Scenes from his marriage played in his mind like broken film reels. Brielle laughing with him over dinner. Brielle comforting him when he returned from a tough deployment. Brielle secretly siphoning money and lying with another man. He felt his face burn with anger and humiliation. The woman he loved had lived a double life and made him a fool. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but with every passing minute, anger was slowly overpowering the pain. Logan parked a block away from Marcus's address, unwilling to announce his presence by pulling up directly. The building was modern, with a sleek glass facade. He watched from a distance for a while, not sure what he expected to find. It was too early for Marcus to be out and about, if he was even home. Still, as Logan surveyed the surroundings, he noticed a black luxury sedan with out-of-state plates idling near the building's side entrance. Two men in suits stood by the car, one smoking a cigarette, their eyes scanning the area cautiously. They did not look like ordinary residents or deliverymen. Their posture and vigilance suggested security or lookouts. A prickling intuition told Logan that something was off. He slumped in his seat to avoid drawing attention as he continued to observe. Moments later, the apartment's side door opened. To Logan's astonishment, Brielle stepped out into the alley beside the building, wrapped in a trench coat and wearing large sunglasses. She glanced around nervously. One of the suited men nodded to her and opened the car's rear door. Brielle slipped inside, and Logan caught a glimpse of another figure in the back seat, a man with Marcus's distinctive profile. Logan's heart pounded against his ribs as the sedan pulled away smoothly. 1,000 questions flooded his mind. Brielle was here, meeting Marcus, protected by men who looked like hired muscle. This was a clandestine meeting, not two lovers casually rendezvousing. Why the security? Who were those men? The implication was chilling. Whatever Brielle was involved in, it was indeed far bigger than a simple affair. These were her new friends, and they were likely dangerous. He started his own car a few seconds later and followed at a safe distance, pulse racing. The sedan wound through downtown streets and eventually headed toward a less savory part of the city by the docks. It came to a stop outside a warehouse with a faded sign that read Millport Import-Export Company. Logan parked half a block down and watched from behind the cover of a parked truck. From his vantage point, he saw Brielle and Marcus emerge, speaking with a tall, thin man who had stepped out of the warehouse to greet them. The distance was too great to hear anything, but Logan strained to read their body language. The tall man pointed toward the warehouse, and one of the bodyguards handed Brielle a thick folder as Marcus looked on. Brielle flipped through its contents briefly, then nodded. Logan's stomach churned. It looked like some sort of business transaction or planning session. Suddenly, Brielle glanced nervously over her shoulder, and for a terrifying moment Logan thought she had spotted him. He pressed himself lower behind the truck's hood. After a few seconds, he dared to peek out again. Brielle was now shaking hands with the tall man, while Marcus spoke with one of the bodyguards, gesturing animatedly as if discussing security details. This was not a tryst. This was a meeting of co-conspirators. Logan's blood boiled as he realized his wife was moving comfortably in circles of corruption, plotting something at a warehouse at the crack of dawn. After a short exchange, Brielle and Marcus returned to the sedan, their bodyguards flanking them. The car drove off, and the tall man disappeared back into the warehouse. Logan debated following the car further but decided against it. He had already confirmed more than enough for now. He knew their destination was likely that lawyer's office or another secure location. More importantly, he needed to process what he had seen. As Logan walked back to his own car, his hands trembled on the steering wheel. He had just witnessed Brielle actively engage with what looked like professional criminals. The folder, the bodyguards, the secrecy, it all pointed to some larger scheme underway. Any lingering hopes that Brielle was a pawn were dashed by the confidence she displayed at that meeting. She was in deep, and she was in it by choice. The depth of her betrayal was staggering. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a text from David. "Logan, I dug up some info. Marcus Cole has ties to a notorious divorce attorney, Alan Richards. Richards has been implicated in multiple fraudulent divorce settlements where wealthy spouses were conned out of fortunes. This goes deep. Be careful." Logan inhaled sharply, reading the message twice. A corrupt divorce attorney? It made perfect sense now. Brielle was aligning every piece necessary to ruin him. If Alan Richards was involved, it meant that her legal strategy was likely as underhanded as her financial schemes. Logan felt a chill. He was not just fighting a cheating spouse, he was up against a coordinated attack on his life as he knew it. White-hot anger and cold fear dueled within him. But instead of crippling him, the fear sharpened his resolve. They wanted to take him down quietly, discreetly. He would not let that happen. If Brielle thought she could ally with criminals, and rip his world apart with impunity, she was about to see how wrong she was. Logan tightened his grip on the wheel, knuckles white. There was one more layer he needed to uncover: the full extent of Alan Richards' operation and how exactly Brielle intended to use it against him. He had a name now, and he knew where to look next. The fight was escalating, and Logan was more than ready to meet it head-on. Logan's mind churned with the revelations as he drove back home. The morning's discoveries had blown the situation wide open. Brielle was entangled with a notorious divorce attorney and a cadre of criminals who specialized in fleecing people of their fortunes. He clenched the steering wheel so tightly his fingers ached, but he barely noticed. All he could think about was how to uncover every detail of their operation before it was too late. Back in his study, Logan spread out everything he had gathered on his desk like a tactical map: bank statements, the PI invoice, Marcus's information, and now a notepad where he had scribbled the names Alan Richards and Ravenel Holdings. The pieces were starting to form a clear picture. He powered up his computer once more, face set in grim determination. If Alan Richards had a history of fraudulent divorce schemes, there would be clues in the public record: lawsuits, news articles, anything. Hours passed as Logan combed through online archives and news databases. Each click and keystroke peeled back another layer of the rotten onion. He found an investigative article in a financial crime blog detailing how an elusive network seemed to be targeting high-asset divorce cases. One paragraph stood out. A whistleblower had hinted that a divorce lawyer, codenamed the Vulture, was the linchpin of a scheme to drain wealthy spouses dry through legal intimidation and hidden asset transfers. The whistleblower described tactics like falsifying evidence, bribing court officials, and siphoning funds to offshore accounts under shell companies. Logan's heart pounded as he read, for the description fit Alan Richards perfectly. Though the article did not name Richards explicitly, it referenced a high-profile divorce case from the previous year. Logan quickly searched that case and found a familiar name in the legal filings. Alan Richards had been the attorney for the winning side. The details of that case made Logan's blood boil. A tech entrepreneur had been taken to the cleaners by his ex-wife and her legal team. Rumors swirled that the wife's camp fabricated claims of domestic abuse and hid assets through a tangle of shell companies. The husband ended up not only losing the majority of his wealth, but also facing criminal fraud charges when money in his name was found stashed abroad. Money he insisted he never moved. No charges stuck to the wife or her lawyer, and the husband's reputation was destroyed. The company names involved in that fiasco jumped out at Logan. Among them was Ravenel Holdings Limited. There it was, in black and white. Ravenel Holdings had been used as a repository for diverted funds in that very case, under the control of Alan Richards' firm. Logan felt a chill as the full scope of Brielle's betrayal crystallized. This was the playbook she was following. She and Richards and their cronies were likely setting him up in a similar fashion. The $10,000 Brielle sent to Ravenel Holdings was just the beginning, possibly a retainer or a test transfer. The mortgage pre-approval he discovered could be part of a plan to saddle him with debt or pull equity out of his assets without his knowledge. They might even be gathering false evidence to pin on him, just as they had done to that tech entrepreneur. His mind flashed back to the private investigator's invoice. Perhaps Brielle had hired the PI to dig for any secrets or weaknesses, or worse, to fabricate wrongdoing on Logan's part. A wave of nausea rolled over him, realizing how close he had been to walking blindly into their trap. If he had not caught her in that affair when he did, how much further along would they be? Would he have been blindsided by divorce papers and criminal accusations all at once? The thought made his chest tighten. But fate, cruel as it was to show him his wife's infidelity, had at least given him a fighting chance to see the bigger picture before it was too late. Logan knew he needed more information on Alan Richards specifically. David's text had given him a starting point, but Logan wanted the full scope. He grabbed his phone and called David back, who answered almost immediately. "Logan, you got my message. I was hoping you would call, David said, concern evident in his tone. I did. It was enlightening, to say the least, Logan replied, his voice steeled with purpose. David, I need everything you can find on Alan Richards. Past cases, known associates, any dirty laundry. This man is at the center of it all. David exhaled. All right. I have heard of Richards in my circles, cutthroat divorce attorney. Rumors of blackmail and evidence planting, but nothing proven. If he is mixed up with Marcus, it means this is a coordinated scam. Give me a couple of hours. I will see what else I can dig up discreetly. Thank you. And David, Logan hesitated, his pride warring with the enormity of what he was asking. I might need more than information soon. I might need help. There was a pause. Then David responded firmly. Whatever you need, brother. I have resources and a few trustworthy guys if it comes to that. Just say the word. Logan closed his eyes, grateful. I hope it will not come to anything dangerous. But these people, they have no scruples. I would not put threats or worse past them. He hung up and found himself rubbing his temples. A dull headache pulsed from the stress and lack of sleep, but he pushed aside his fatigue. He could rest when this was over. Stepping to his filing cabinet, Logan pulled out his personal files, deeds, account statements, his will, insurance policies. He needed to assess what targets Brielle and her conspirators might go after next. His house, which he had bought before marriage, was in his name, but if the mortgage scam went through, they might have been trying to draw out its equity or even put a lien on it. His life insurance, which named Brielle as beneficiary, suddenly felt like a loaded gun in her hands. A cold shiver ran through him as he realized the danger. If Brielle was willing to go this far, would she even stop at faking evidence? What if, once they squeezed him dry financially, they considered him more valuable dead than alive? Logan paced the study, a protective fury building in his chest. He would not be a victim. Quickly, he began making calls to tighten up his life. He phoned his bank and, under the guise of routine security, set up new passcodes and alerts on all accounts. He informed the credit bureaus to freeze any new credit requests under his name, thwarting any further secret loans or mortgages. He changed the beneficiary on his life insurance from Brielle to his sister, a move that made him choke back bitterness to execute. He did each of these tasks carefully and without fanfare, so as not to tip off Brielle too soon. If she tried any of those avenues now, she would hit a brick wall and know he was onto her. But at least the most lethal weapons she had against him would be blunted. As afternoon faded to evening, David called back with more intel. Logan sat at his desk, pen in hand as he listened. Richards operates out of a downtown office. His firm is small but highly efficient. He employs an in-house investigator and has ties to a security firm, likely those men you saw with Brielle. They are known to intimidate opposing parties. Richards himself keeps a low profile publicly, but interestingly, he had a complaint filed against him with the state bar last year for unethical conduct. It was dismissed quietly. The complainant was an anonymous source who claimed Richards conspired to fabricate evidence in a divorce case. It never went anywhere, probably buried. This guy has connections, David said, his voice grave. Logan scribbled notes feverishly. Any mention of Ravenel Holdings or other shell companies linked to him? He asked, trying to cover every angle. Yes, David replied. There is a web of businesses that seem to intersect with Richard's clients. Ravenel Holdings is one, also something called Millport Import-Export. That one caught my eye. Logan's pulse quickened. Millport Import-Export. I saw that name on a warehouse this morning by the docks. By the docks? That would make sense. Sounds like a front. Likely where they shuffle around physical assets or paperwork off the radar, David said grimly. Logan, this is big. Richards has a whole ecosystem. Lawyers, fake companies, muscle for hire, financial consultants, like that Marcus guy. They work together to drain and break their targets. And if Brielle is with them, he trailed off, not needing to finish the thought. She is, Logan confirmed quietly. I saw enough with my own eyes. She was with them, David, coordinating as if it was just business. Saying it aloud hurt more than he expected. His own wife treating his downfall like a business transaction. The betrayal cut to the bone. David's voice softened. I am sorry, Logan. I truly am. Logan swallowed, his throat dry. I appreciate it. But I will survive. I am not the first they have tried this on, but I swear I will be the last. I will see to that. The edge in his voice was razor sharp. After hanging up, Logan remained at his desk, staring at the array of evidence and notes. He finally understood the full extent of the nightmare that had engulfed his life. This was a criminal enterprise, and Brielle was a willing participant. Every memory he had of her was now tainted by this knowledge. Their marriage had been nothing more than a means to an end for her, an elaborate con. The love he had given so freely had been met with deceit and malice. Logan felt a storm of emotions raging inside. Anger, devastation, betrayal, but also a grim satisfaction that he had uncovered the truth in time. The enemy was no longer hidden in the shadows. He could see them clearly now. And like any enemy he had faced on the battlefield, they had weaknesses and they could be defeated. He took a fresh sheet of paper and began to outline a plan, just as he would strategize a military operation. He listed names: Brielle, Marcus, Alan Richards, the shell companies, the warehouse. He noted what he knew about each and what vulnerabilities they might have. His pen moved swiftly as adrenaline drove him. There was no official mission here, no commanding officer, just a man determined to protect what was his and to exact justice for the unforgivable treachery he had suffered. As night settled in, Logan stood and gazed out the window at the twinkling lights of the city. Somewhere out there, his wife and her co-conspirators were likely congratulating themselves, believing they had him ensnared in their trap. They had no idea that he was onto them, that he was already dismantling their scheme piece by piece. Logan's eyes burned with unshed tears of rage and hurt as he made a silent vow to himself. He would make them pay, every single one of them. They had tried to destroy his life, but they had only succeeded in awakening a ferocity in him that he did not know he possessed. In the quiet darkness of his home, Logan promised that when the time came, his revenge would be exacted with the same cold precision they had shown him. And he would not rest until the betrayers were brought to their knees. The city hummed beneath a hazy dusk as Logan parked his truck 2 blocks from the warehouse, where Brielle had met her associates. His grip on the steering wheel lingered a moment before he pulled a small black case from under the seat. Inside were his most discreet tools: mini surveillance cams, audio bugs, and a GPS tracker. Years of military intel work had taught him how to observe without being seen, and now he would put those skills to use in a different kind of war. That night, under the cover of shadows and fog, Logan moved through the alleys behind Millport Import-Export like a ghost. He wore dark clothes, a cap pulled low, and latex gloves. Every footstep was calculated. He crouched behind a dumpster and surveyed the back entrance. It was unguarded. The security must have rotated earlier. Logan used the window of opportunity to move quickly. With deft fingers, he placed a pin-sized camera beneath the ledge over the side door. It had a clear view of the entrance and would stream to his encrypted tablet. Next, he planted a micro-audio recorder near a vent, its pickup range designed to capture conversations from inside. Every placement had a purpose. Every move was precise. From a nearby rooftop, Logan sat cross-legged with his surveillance feed illuminating the screen before him. Hours passed in silence except for the occasional low murmur through his earpiece. Voices, distorted by walls, hinted at coded transactions and upcoming meetings. But then, a name caught his attention. Clear, crisp. Richards is bringing the judge in on Tuesday, a voice said. Logan froze. A corrupted judge? This was no longer just financial manipulation. They were embedding their influence into the legal system itself. Logan's stomach twisted. If Brielle's legal team had a judge in their pocket, then there was no limit to how far they could twist the law against him. The night air turned colder, but Logan remained on the rooftop long after midnight. He knew what he was doing was dangerous, but he did not care. If they were playing this game in the shadows, he would beat them there. He packed up at dawn and slipped away unnoticed, a ghost with the truth in his pocket and a fire rising in his chest. Logan spent the next day locked inside the cabin, surrounded by maps, real estate data, and political connections he had begun piecing together like a criminal investigator. What had started as a betrayal between a man and his wife was now unraveling into something wider, dirtier, systemic rot. Brielle's name showed up on recent deeds tied to a real estate investment group called Sterling Growth Partners. On paper, it looked like a clean development fund, but Logan's research uncovered something else. Sterling had purchased multiple city blocks at a suspiciously low price through foreclosures, then flipped the properties for massive profit within weeks. Several of those flips were linked to officials in the city planning department. At first, Logan could not believe what he was seeing. Then he found the connection. The chairman of the zoning board, Councilman Roy Kennett, was a former client of Alan Richards. That was the moment Logan realized Brielle had aligned herself with a full-scale corruption network, not just a con against him. These people were manipulating the housing market, laundering money, and pulling legal strings from behind expensive desks and courtroom benches. He remembered something Brielle once said during dinner with friends. Real power is not just money. It's knowing people who can turn that money into control. Back then, he had laughed it off, chalking it up to wine-fueled ambition. Now, those words echoed with venom. He went back through the surveillance footage he had captured last night, freezing on a frame where Brielle stood beside a new man, mid-50s, gold ring with a crest, speaking into her ear. Logan zoomed in. Facial recognition software returned a hit, Judge Elias Dunning. A retired judge turned consultant, another piece of their crooked puzzle. Logan leaned back, staring at the wall covered in photos, red pins, and strings, a war map. It was worse than he thought. They were not just coming for his finances. They were coming for his freedom. By the following week, Logan had made a decision. He needed to disappear, not physically, but bureaucratically. If Brielle and her allies wanted to use official systems to trap him, then he would remove himself from those systems altogether. No social footprint, no traceable identity, just silence. He began by reaching out to an old contact, a cyber intelligence analyst named Mason Gray Atwood, known in military circles for making people vanish from databases without leaving a trace. They met in a parking garage outside of Denver, under cover of a rainy night. "I need to be gone," Logan said quietly, his voice firm. "Not dead, just missing." Gray raised an eyebrow. "You want to go off-grid without setting off alarms. That is not easy. You managed it for Khaled's daughter in 2019, Logan replied. That was different. She was a civilian. So am I now, Logan said, slipping him a thick envelope. Gray flipped through it. Cash in a small encrypted drive. All right, but when this is done, there is no more social security, no bank cards, no digital footprint. You will be a ghost. That is the idea. By morning, Logan Pierce's status in the military database read, missing in action, classified operation. Location, unknown. His online presence was wiped clean. Mail stopped forwarding. His name dropped off public records. Even his phone was replaced with a burner. He stood in the cabin that night, firelight flickering across the wall of evidence. They thought they were moving unchecked. They had no idea Logan was already operating in the one place they feared most, the shadows. Rain tapped lightly against the cabin's window panes as Logan sat at his desk, his expression carved from stone. A fire crackled in the hearth, but its warmth did not reach the storm behind his eyes. On the wall before him hung the new map of his operation, not one of military terrain, but of betrayal. Dozens of pinned photographs stretched across a corkboard. Brielle walking out of the warehouse, Marcus shaking hands with Richards, the judge stepping into a black SUV. Red threads connected names, places, shell corporations. Logan had transformed the room into a war room. And in the center of it all, circled in bold ink, was her face. Brielle. He stared at it longer than he should have. A part of him still remembered the woman he married. But that part was fading. The woman in the photos was not his wife. She was a threat, methodical, manipulative, and complicit. He opened a new folder marked Strike Phase 1. Inside were copies of audio recordings, video clips, bank statements, and property records. All organized, labeled, ready. Evidence was no longer a question. The question now was, where to hit first? Logan circled the name of a small startup company that Brielle had recently invested in. Confronting Capital. It was a new venture, supposedly dealing in high-risk portfolios and luxury real estate. But beneath that shiny title was another shell to funnel dirty money through. Too clean, Logan muttered. Too fast. He picked up his burner phone and dialed a number routed through 3 encrypted relays. A voice on the other end answered. Gray speaking. I need a false identity, Logan said flatly. High net worth. New money. No ties to my name. There was a brief pause. You are making your move. I am setting the trap. As Gray got to work, Logan leaned back and exhaled slowly. This was the quiet before the storm. All the pain, all the betrayal, he would weaponize it. Brielle had built her future on deception. Now he would show her what it felt like to lose everything, without even seeing it coming. 2 days later, a new identity was born. Vincent Maddox, 42, venture capitalist from Chicago, recently relocated to Denver with substantial liquid assets and interest in private equity. Untraceable, unlinked to Logan Pierce, but convincing enough to fool even the most skeptical investor. Logan adjusted his appearance. Crisp suit, trimmed beard, a Rolex Gray had acquired, and a new accent softened just enough to suggest East Coast wealth. His voice deeper, more composed. His body language colder. The soldier was hidden beneath layers of tailored silk and quiet confidence. With the identity live, Logan had Gray leak a fake investor profile to Confronting Capital, the same shell Brielle was using. It did not take long for her camp to notice. 2 hours after the profile went public, Logan received an encrypted email from an address linked to Marcus. Subject, exploratory partnership discussion. Logan smiled. They took the bait. The next day, he entered a downtown high-rise office in a private suite leased under his alias. He stood near the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the traffic below, as Brielle stepped into the room. She looked stunning, as always, sharp black dress, sleek hair, cold confidence radiating from every movement. She extended a hand without hesitation. Mr. Maddox, a pleasure, she said smoothly. Logan turned, schooling every muscle in his face not to react. The pleasure is mine, he replied. I have heard interesting things about your company. They sat across from each other, glass table between them. Logan kept his eyes locked on hers, every gesture carefully measured. Brielle explained the investment strategy with poise, mentioning an exclusive group of partners and upcoming international opportunities. Logan responded with interest and veiled curiosity. And the legal coverage? I assume your counsel is experienced. She smiled. Alan Richards. Ironclad. Perfect. By the time the meeting ended, Brielle was hooked. She believed Vincent Maddox was a powerful man with money to burn and no idea of her past. As she left the suite, Logan remained still, heart pounding but face unreadable. She had just looked her ex-husband in the eye, and she had no idea. The trap had been set. Now, Logan began weaving himself into Brielle's world as Vincent Maddox, the mysterious investor with a limitless bank account and a thirst for high-risk ventures. Using Gray's help, he funded a small side firm called Maddox Ventures, designed to appear legitimate to any background check. Its public-facing team consisted of paid actors and a virtual assistant firm trained to speak in code. The company existed solely to be a mirror, reflecting everything Brielle and Marcus believed he was. Invitations began to arrive quickly: fundraising galas, private networking events, real estate mixers. And at each one, Logan, as Vincent, shook hands with lawyers, bankers, city officials, and always with Brielle watching from a distance, curious and increasingly intrigued. One evening, at a lavish rooftop charity gala, Logan spotted her near the champagne bar. She was talking to a councilman. He timed his approach perfectly. "Brielle," he said, stepping in with a glass of wine. "You always know how to make an entrance." She turned, smiling with surprise. "Vincent, twice in 1 week. I go where the real players go," he said smoothly, raising his glass. She laughed softly. "I like that." They talked for 10 minutes, about risk, politics, offshore portfolios. She was impressed. She flirted lightly. Logan returned just enough charm to keep her leaning closer. Inside, he felt like vomiting. But he smiled anyway, because every word she said added to his mental file. Every brag, every name she dropped, every detail she thought harmless, all of it was fuel. Logan left the party early, ducking into a black car waiting 2 blocks away. Gray was on the line. "She is warming up to you," he said. Logan stared out the window, face hardening. "She is walking straight into her own destruction." Logan leaned over the tablet in his dimly lit cabin, reviewing surveillance footage from the gala 2 nights ago. Every word Brielle spoke, every subtle glance she exchanged with the city councilman, every slip of information, it was all cataloged. He watched her laughter, her careless brags about future property deals. It painted a picture of someone who believed herself untouchable. Gray's voice crackled through the secure line. "The councilman she spoke with, Wallace Greer. He just pushed through a zoning permit last week. Guess who the applicant was?" Logan did not need to guess. "Crown Tier Capital." "Exactly," Gray confirmed. "And guess who signed off? Your friendly neighborhood Judge Dunning." Logan's fingers drummed slowly against the desk. It was more than personal betrayal now. It was systemic corruption feeding itself like a snake eating its own tail. "They are accelerating," Logan said, scanning through emails on his burner phone. Brielle had already sent Vincent Maddox an invitation to an exclusive investor luncheon. Another opportunity to weave deeper into her web. "She thinks you are her ticket to expansion," Gray said. "She is baiting you." Logan's mouth twisted into a bitter smile. "Good. Let her." He closed the surveillance app and leaned back, staring up at the wooden ceiling beams. The cabin, once a refuge, had become a war room. Maps, photos, timelines, every thread weaving tighter around Brielle and her partners. Yet despite the growing web of evidence, Logan felt no satisfaction yet, only the slow, cold burn of patience. He would not strike now. Not yet. Brielle's arrogance was her weakness, and Logan intended to let her build her empire a few stories taller before he pulled the entire foundation out from underneath her. He packed the tablet and burner phone into his secure bag and stepped out into the cold night air. The stars above blinked indifferently. In their silent watch, Logan made a silent vow. She would never see it coming. And when the fall came, it would be from heights she built with her own greedy hands. The venue was pure opulence, a sunlit rooftop garden atop the most exclusive hotel in the city. Gold-trimmed tables, live violin music, men and women in designer suits and dresses swirling champagne in crystal flutes. Everything meticulously designed to impress. Logan, or rather, Vincent Maddox, fit right in. He wore a navy suit, tailored to precision, and carried himself with the casual arrogance expected of new money. He smiled at the right people, laughed at the appropriate jokes, and shook hands like he had done it 1,000 times before. Across the terrace, Brielle caught his eye and began weaving through the crowd toward him. Logan watched her approach, confident, radiant, ruthless. "Vincent," she purred as she reached him, pressing a soft hand to his arm. "I am so glad you made it. How could I refuse?" Logan replied smoothly. You promised me something unforgettable. Brielle laughed, the sound as hollow as the champagne bubbles. She leaned closer, her voice low. We are expanding into something much bigger. International partnerships. Political doors opening. This is just the beginning. Logan tilted his head, feigning intrigue. And all this through Crown Tier. Crown Tier is just the start, she whispered, her smile turning sly. Soon, we will be controlling parts of the city's infrastructure itself. Transport, water, real estate, you name it. Logan let that hang between them, appearing thoughtful. Inside, his blood ran cold. They were not just laundering money anymore. They were laying claim to public lifelines. He set his glass down carefully. Sounds dangerous. Brielle's eyes gleamed. Only for those who are not on the inside. A slow smile curled Logan's lips. Then I suppose I want in. She laughed again, delighted, and slipped a heavy envelope into his jacket pocket, filled with the first set of confidential documents to lure him deeper. Property deeds, legal loopholes, names of officials on the take. Brielle thought she was handing a future partner the keys to the kingdom. She was actually handing a soldier the blueprint to burn it all down. That night, back at the cabin, Logan spread the documents across the dining table like a general reviewing enemy plans. Each sheet of paper, every name, every signature, proof of the rot Brielle and her circle had cultivated. Gray's voice buzzed through the speakerphone. You have everything you need. Bank accounts, property records, bribery trails. This is enough to bury half the city council and your lovely wife. Not yet, Logan said, eyes scanning a particularly damning page showing a judge's offshore wire transfer. The trap needs to be bigger. Gray hesitated. Logan, you are already inside. One wrong move, and she needs to believe she has won. Logan interrupted, his voice quiet but ironclad. Only then will the fall destroy her completely. Gray sighed. All right, how do you want to play it? Logan picked up a blank notebook and began writing. We expand. We propose a new investment, a fake project. Something too big, too risky, too tempting. Gray caught on instantly. Something so lucrative she cannot resist. Exactly, Logan said. We bait her into committing full public fraud. We make her step out of the shadows. Because if Brielle was greedy enough to believe she could own the city, Logan needed her to show her true hand where everyone could see. By the time she realized the walls were closing in, there would be no deals to make, no favors to call, no escape routes to run through. She would drown in the empire she tried to build. Logan pressed his palm flat on the documents, his jaw clenching. They thought I was a pawn, he said lowly. They thought wrong. As the fire crackled behind him and the storm outside raged louder, Logan's plan began to take a ruthless, final shape. The battlefield was almost ready, and the first shot would be fired by Brielle herself. The evening air in Denver buzzed with the low hum of ambition. Logan, masked as Vincent Maddox, stood in a private conference room overlooking the skyline, hands clasped loosely behind his back. The final phase of the setup was unfolding before him, and Brielle was about to walk straight into it. On the polished oak table rested the blueprint for a fake venture, Valor Heights, a luxury redevelopment project supposedly tied to offshore investments. In reality, it was a carefully woven web of false companies, fraudulent deeds, and a funding structure designed to collapse the moment anyone tried to cash out. Brielle entered the room with Marcus by her side, both dressed sharply, both brimming with confidence. Logan turned, offering the practiced smile of a man about to hand over millions. Vincent, Brielle said, her voice silk wrapped around steel. We are ready. I hope so, Logan said, gesturing to the table. Because Valor Heights is going to be big. Very big. Marcus leaned over the papers, his eyes gleaming. You are proposing we anchor all future assets into this development? Logan nodded, his tone casual but firm. Front-facing, it is clean. Behind the scenes? Untouchable. Offshore security. Insulation layers. Plausible deniability. Brielle's lips parted slightly, the gleam of greed impossible to hide. She saw power, control, an empire carved from stone and glass, funded by shadow money, legitimized by the right signatures. Is the council on board? Marcus asked, careful. Logan smiled. Already greased. All we need is an anchor investor. Brielle glanced at Marcus, then back at Logan. We can deliver. Logan allowed a slow, approving nod. Then welcome to Valor Heights. As they shook hands, Logan felt it. The moment the bait sank deep. They were fully committed now, binding themselves to a project that was nothing but smoke and mirrors. And soon, when the smoke cleared, the wreckage would belong to them, not him. Weeks passed in a controlled frenzy. Logan played his role to perfection, hosting dinners, funding shell meetings, introducing interested parties who were nothing more than actors under Gray's command. Every interaction tightened the noose around Brielle and Marcus's necks. They believed they were climbing higher. In reality, they were building their own gallows. Behind the scenes, Logan worked tirelessly. Surveillance footage piled up. Secret recordings captured their bragging about bribes, their smug assurances that the city council was in their pocket. Financial records showed illegal transfers through Valor Heights accounts Logan had deliberately poisoned with falsified ledgers. Every piece of the puzzle clicked into place. At night, Logan stood on the cabin porch, the cold wind biting his face. He looked out over the woods, feeling the weight of everything he had built and everything he was about to destroy. A single message buzzed on his burner phone. Gray, documents are ready. Leak is scheduled. Logan stared at the message, the weight of it heavy on his chest. Tomorrow, it would begin. Tomorrow, Brielle's world, the world she had built on lies, deceit, and stolen dreams, would collapse in real time. There was no turning back now. He slid the phone back into his pocket and whispered to the silent woods, "This is for everything you took from me." Lightning flashed far in the distance, illuminating the dark sky for a heartbeat. The storm was almost here, and Logan was ready to unleash it. The morning came with an eerie stillness. Logan sat in his rental SUV across the street from the Crown Tier Capitol headquarters, a modern glass tower glittering in the early sun. Beside him, a laptop displayed a countdown timer, 2 minutes left. Inside the building, Brielle and Marcus were preparing to launch a public press conference. A triumphant announcement about Valor Heights, their crown jewel. Logan pictured them beaming with false pride, shaking hands with city officials already compromised. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, heart pounding but face calm. 30 seconds. Gray's voice came through the earpiece. Final confirmation, Logan. Once the leak hits, there is no stopping it. Logan smiled grimly. Fire it. On the laptop screen, the timer hit 0. Instantly, an avalanche of data burst across public networks. Evidence of fraudulent transactions, shell companies linked to illegal offshore accounts, audio recordings of bribery admissions, secret meeting videos. And not just Crown Tier. Every dirty councilman, every shady official Brielle and Marcus had ever touched, exposed for the world to see. Social media exploded. News alerts blared. Screens inside the Crown Tier building, meant to display the press conference slideshow, flickered once and then lit up with damning evidence, one after another. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, mugshots, audio clips. Chaos erupted. Logan watched as men and women in expensive suits stumbled out into the street, phones clutched to their ears, faces pale and broken. He spotted Marcus first, sprinting out, shouting into his phone, face contorted in panic. Then Brielle, looking around wildly, confusion turning to horror as she realized her empire was crumbling faster than she could comprehend. Logan leaned back in his seat, watching it all unfold like a silent execution. You wanted a kingdom built on lies, he murmured. And you forgot. Kings fall the hardest. He put the car in gear and drove away, leaving the ruins behind him. Calm, silent and unshakably victorious. The first blow had been struck, and the war was far from over. Brielle's penthouse was chaos. Logan watched from a building across the street through a sniper scope-grade telephoto lens, not with a rifle, but with patience sharper than any bullet. Inside, Brielle paced furiously, phone glued to her ear. Marcus sat slumped on the designer couch, his hands buried in his hair. Papers were scattered everywhere. Deeds, contracts, false ledgers, the tools of their empire, now worthless ashes. The news cycle was relentless. Every major outlet had picked up the leaks. Reporters swarmed Crown Tier's offices, flashing cameras at shell-shocked executives. Anonymous sources, courtesy of Logan, fed insider details to the media, ensuring the scandal stayed ablaze. City council members were resigning in disgrace. Judges were being questioned under federal investigation. The mayor's office issued frantic statements of denial. And in the eye of the hurricane stood Brielle, realizing, too late, that the ground beneath her feet was crumbling. Logan adjusted his earpiece. Gray's voice came through, smooth and cold. Phase 2 initiated. Marcus's accounts are frozen. His properties are flagged. He will not last the week. Logan allowed a tight smile. What about Brielle? She has enough offshore to run, if she can get to it. But we have eyes on her movement. She makes one wrong step. We lock her out permanently. Logan lowered the lens, exhaling slowly. The time for passive observation was ending. It was time to confront her. Face to face. No disguises. No aliases. No more masks. Logan's hand curled into a fist at his side. The rage he had buried for months boiled to the surface. Brielle had betrayed him, stolen from him, tried to destroy him. Now it was his turn to step into the light, not as Vincent Maddox, but as the man she thought she had broken, Logan Pierce. And this time, there would be no mercy. The setting was poetic, the same rooftop where Brielle had first seduced Logan into her network of lies under the guise of glamour and opportunity. Logan arrived at dusk. No suit, no disguise, just him, in black jeans, combat boots, and a leather jacket that fit like armor. As he stepped into the rooftop lounge, heads turned. The chaos of the scandal had reached everyone, and yet here he was, calm, unstoppable. Brielle spotted him instantly, her face drained of color. For a long moment, the world seemed to fall silent. Then, carefully, she moved towards him, heels clicking on the polished floor. "Vincent," she said, voice trembling, trying to salvage her facade. Logan shook his head slowly, a cruel glint in his eye. "Wrong." Her smile faltered. What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his voice low and lethal. "I am Logan Pierce." The name hit her like a slap. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Only a strangled breath. "You married me. You cheated on me. You tried to strip me of everything." Logan continued, voice steady as iron. "And you thought you could walk away clean?" Brielle's composure crumbled. "Logan, it was not supposed to. Save it," he snapped, his voice slicing through the air. "You sold your soul for greed. You lied to me while plotting to destroy me." Tears welled in her eyes, but Logan saw through them now. The manipulation, the desperation. "You are finished," he said coldly. "The courts are coming. The feds are coming. Your friends? They are abandoning ship." He leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. "You are alone now, Brielle, just like you deserve." And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, shaking, broken, as the walls she had built on lies finally collapsed around her. The fallout spread faster than wildfire. The very next morning, Brielle's arrest made headlines across every major news outlet. Mugshots, seized properties, frozen accounts, public disgrace. Marcus was arrested trying to board a private jet out of state. Cuffed and dragged across the tarmac, his face plastered across national news. Judge Dunning resigned under health concerns within hours. Investigations spiraled into dozens of new charges. Logan watched it all unfold from a nondescript cafe downtown, sipping black coffee like any ordinary man watching the news, invisible amidst the chaos he had orchestrated. The waitress refilled his cup and smiled politely. "Crazy, huh?" she said, nodding at the television where Brielle's tear-streaked face flashed. "Rich people think they are untouchable." Logan offered a small smile. "They are not." When he stepped out into the crisp morning air, the city felt different, cleaner somehow, like a storm had washed the dirt from the streets. He knew this was not the end. Not yet. There were still embers smoldering beneath the ruins Brielle had left behind, allies she had worked with, silent partners in the shadows. But for the first time in a long time, Logan felt something break free inside him. Not anger, not pain. Hope. He pulled his jacket tighter around him and disappeared into the bustling crowd, a ghost once more. But this time, not running. This time, hunting. Because the war was not just against Brielle anymore. It was against everyone who believed they could play God with other people's lives. And Logan Pierce was just getting started. 2 days after Brielle's arrest, Logan sat in the dim light of a private library, the worn leather chair groaning under his weight. Outside, the rain painted streaks across the tall windows. He should have felt satisfied. The empire Brielle built had crumbled. Justice had been served. But deep inside, something gnawed at him. There were too many loose ends. Too many gaps. Logan pulled the folder Gray had delivered that morning closer. Inside were transcripts from intercepted messages, conversations between Marcus, Brielle, and another name. Cameron Ward. The blood drained from Logan's face. Cameron Ward, his former commanding officer. A man he had once trusted with his life during Black Ops missions overseas. Logan's hands trembled slightly as he flipped through the pages. Meetings, secret financial transfers, coded language tying Cameron directly into Crown Tier's inner circle. But one message caught Logan's eye, sent 3 weeks before Brielle's arrest. Ensure Pierce remains distracted. He cannot connect Valor Heights to the real operation. Logan sat frozen. They had not just betrayed him emotionally. They had engineered the entire collapse, using his marriage as a smokescreen while they played a much bigger game behind his back. The realization hit like a gut punch. Brielle's affair had been real, but it had also been orchestrated, manipulated, designed to destabilize him and protect something much larger than money laundering or city bribery. He had been a pawn, not just to Brielle, but to people he once saluted. Rage, hotter than anything he had felt before, boiled up inside him. Brielle's betrayal had shattered his heart. Cameron's betrayal shattered his soul. Logan stood slowly, the folder crumpling in his fists. This was not over. It had never been about a cheating wife. It was about a war he had not even realized he was fighting. And now, he was going to burn every last one of them to the ground. By nightfall, Logan had a plan. He had spent years operating behind enemy lines, dismantling insurgent networks piece by piece. Now, he would turn those same skills against the ones who had betrayed him. Cameron Ward was still untouchable, hidden behind layers of private security, dummy corporations, political allies. But Logan knew one truth about powerful men. They got careless when they believed no one could touch them. Gray's voice crackled through the secure burner. "You sure you want to do this, Logan? You take a shot at Ward. It is no small-time revenge play anymore. It is war." Logan's voice was cold steel. He made it personal. Silence hummed for a beat. Then Gray said quietly, "All right, I am with you." The plan was simple. Isolate Cameron from his inner circle, expose his darkest secrets, and dismantle his protection network. Logan started small. He hacked into Cameron's offshore accounts, siphoning confidential financial records. He traced anonymous campaign donations back to rigged city contracts. Every thread Logan pulled led to another. Judges, councilmen, lobbyists. They were all connected. And they had all used Logan's career, his loyalty, as a shield for their operations. He worked through the night in silence, the glow of computer screens painting his face in harsh light. His movements were swift, methodical, like a ghost moving through enemy territory. But it was not just data he hunted. He wanted something deeper, something personal, something that would break Cameron Ward the way Cameron had tried to break him. And by morning, Logan found it. A series of classified documents buried deep in encrypted archives. A list. Names. Missions. Logan's own records. Missions where mistakes had been covered up, where innocence had been sacrificed, and where Cameron had built his empire of power by burying the truth, along with the bodies. Logan leaned back, fists clenched. They had used him. And now? It was time to expose the butcher. 3 nights later, Logan stood on the edge of a rooftop overlooking the Capitol Plaza, the city lights glittering like broken promises below. Cameron Ward was inside the towering hotel across the street, attending a closed-door fundraiser packed with senators, lobbyists, and judges. Untouchable. Or so he thought. Logan checked his watch. Gray's voice buzzed in his ear. Surveillance is live. You are green to go. Logan pulled a small device from his jacket, a portable transmitter disguised as a hotel valet pager. One press would unleash a controlled leak of the classified documents directly onto every unsecured device in that ballroom. Screens, phones, laptops. All their sins. Public. Unfiltered. Irrevocable. Logan stared across the street for a long moment, breathing slowly. This was more than revenge now. It was a reckoning. He thought of Brielle, of the nights he had trusted her sleeping beside him while she plotted his ruin. He thought of Cameron, who had once pinned medals to his chest with a proud smile while planning his downfall. His thumb hovered over the trigger. A simple press. 1 second. No going back. Logan smiled bitterly. They had tried to erase him from history. Tonight, he would erase them from power. He pressed the button. Across the street, lights flickered. Phones buzzed. Screens changed. And suddenly, chaos exploded inside the ballroom. Shouts, gasps, screams. The truth blazed across every surface: accounts, murder cover-ups, blackmail schemes. And Cameron Ward, frozen in horror at the center of it all, watching as the empire he had built turned to ash before his eyes. Logan watched from the shadows, unseen, untraceable. The first true spark of his larger war had been lit. And he was just getting started. The aftermath of the leak had hit like a precision airstrike. City networks crashed under the weight of the exposed data. Every media outlet, from Denver to D.C., scrambled to cover the breaking scandal. Anonymous sources, guided quietly by Gray, began feeding the press additional layers of the conspiracy. What started as corporate fraud now stretched to military intelligence cover-ups and government bribery. But Logan knew better than to celebrate too soon. The deeper you strike, the harder they swing back. Gray's voice echoed through his earpiece as Logan drove through the back roads leading to a secure drop site. They are rattled, Logan. Cameron's legal team just filed a gag order on federal inquiries. That means they are desperate. Logan's jaw tightened. Desperate men are dangerous. He parked the SUV and approached the cabin's hidden basement, a secure tech bunker lined with encrypted servers and field gear. He had stocked it for a long game. Now it would serve as a battlefield command. Inside, Gray appeared on the main monitor via secure uplink. There is more, he said, his tone darkening. They have hired someone. Logan stilled. Who? Name is Dominic Cross. Former private contractor. No conscience, no loyalties. Paid by whoever offers the most blood money. Logan inhaled slowly. They are not trying to hide it anymore. Gray leaned closer on screen. This is not just about silencing you. They want you erased. Logan looked to the wall. Maps, surveillance stills, faces crossed out in red. Let them come, he said. He walked to a drawer and pulled out his sidearm. Cold, heavy steel, and holstered it under his jacket. The war had just gone hot, and Logan Pierce was ready for them. The attack came sooner than expected. Logan returned to his safe house late the next evening, rain slicking his jacket, when he noticed the door was slightly ajar. A sliver of darkness split the entryway, subtle, but wrong. He froze. Years of combat instinct screamed in his blood. He drew his weapon silently, stepping to the side and flattening against the wall. A breath. Then two. He slipped inside low and fast, eyes adjusting quickly. Movement near the kitchen. A figure in black. Logan fired a warning shot into the floor, just inches from the man's boot. Hands up. The figure spun, tall, lean, with a shaved head and a wicked grin. Dominic Cross. I was hoping for more of a challenge, he said coolly, lifting his hands with mock surrender. Logan did not smile. You found the wrong damn house. Dominic lunged, not for a weapon, but for Logan himself, trying to disarm him with brute speed. They clashed violently. Fists, knees, elbows, two trained killers tearing through the kitchen in a blur of raw fury. Glass shattered. Chairs cracked. Logan took a blow to the ribs, but landed a brutal elbow to Dominic's throat. The man staggered. That was all Logan needed. He grabbed a ceramic pot and smashed it across Dominic's skull, sending him to the floor with a sickening thud. Logan stood over him, chest heaving. You are not the first they sent, he said between breaths. And you will not be the last. Dominic groaned, trying to rise, but Logan pressed his boot to his chest, pinning him down. I want names, Logan said. Every contact. Every back channel. Dominic smirked through the blood. You will not survive them all. Logan pressed harder. Then I will die making sure they do not either. The morning after the attack, Logan received an untraceable call from Gray. But it was not Gray's voice that greeted him. Mr. Pierce, a woman said calmly. My name is Evelyn Hart. I work with internal intelligence, off record. Logan's eyes narrowed. And how did you get this number? Your friend Gray trusts me. And more importantly, I have been watching Ward for 2 years. Logan stayed silent. I know you are the one who leaked the files, she continued. And while the agency cannot officially thank you, unofficially, you did what we could not. What do you want? Logan asked. I want him gone, Evelyn said without hesitation. Cameron Ward is part of something bigger than Denver, bigger than Crown Tier, and we need someone on the outside, someone they do not see coming. Logan exhaled slowly. You want me to keep doing what I am doing? We will give you everything you need, access, data, contacts, but no protection. You stay off-grid. You stay dead. Logan thought for a long moment. Then he nodded, even though she could not see him. I never needed protection. Evelyn paused. Good, because the next layer is going to be darker than anything you have seen so far. Logan stared out the cabin window, the early sun slicing through the trees. Let it come. The documents Evelyn sent that night were different. Encrypted, layered, dangerous. Logan sat alone in the bunker, the glow of his monitor cutting shadows across his face. Evelyn had given him access to a secured internal channel. Inside were surveillance logs, coded black budget reports, and lists of offshore accounts, none of them public. All connected to the same corrupt core, Cameron Ward, and a clandestine unit called Argon Directive. Argon was not just a group, it was a silent mechanism buried inside government operations. A ghost system used to shift weapons, erase identities, and fund private wars. And now, Logan knew, it was how Ward had risen to power. Evelyn's voice filtered through the earpiece. Ward did not act alone. He was protected by Argon. But the moment you exposed him, their panic started. Good, Logan said quietly. I want them exposed, piece by piece. You will not find all of them in files, she warned. You will have to go through one of their field men, someone who knows their movements. Where do I find him? She hesitated, then replied. Seattle. A man named Dax Halser. Ex-NSA. Dangerous. Unstable. But he ran digital logistics for Argon. He has the keys to their hidden networks. Logan stood, holstering his weapon. Then I will make him talk. Outside, thunder rolled over the mountains. This was not about Brielle anymore. Not even about Cameron. This was about something darker, something buried beneath flags and silence. Logan grabbed his bag and disappeared into the rain-soaked night. Seattle was wet, cold, and gray, the kind of city where secrets blended with rainwater. Logan parked in an alley behind an abandoned textile warehouse and pulled the hood of his jacket over his head. Gray had hacked a surveillance satellite to pinpoint Dax Halser's movement. He lived off-grid in a fortified apartment above an old nightclub. No digital presence, no official address. But Logan was not official. He was vengeance with a pulse. By midnight, Logan had scaled the fire escape of the apartment building, his boots silent on the slick steel. Inside, the flickering blue of computer monitors lit the dusty windows. He found Dax alone, hunched over a bank of servers, muttering to himself. Logan drew his weapon and kicked the door open. Dax spun, eyes wild, a pistol already drawn. Who the hell? Logan fired once, straight into the wall beside Dax's head. Dax froze. Logan stepped forward. You know who I am. You know why I am here. You are the guy who burned Crown Tier, Dax hissed. Ward said you were dead. I was, Logan replied coldly. Now I want names. Codes. Accounts. All of it. Dax scoffed. You think I am scared of you? Logan pulled out a flash drive and tossed it onto the desk. That contains every bit of your private search history, banking activity, black market trades, and a kill order linked to your name. You are already dead, Dax. I am the only one offering you a way out. Silence. Then Dax slumped into his chair. You are crazy. Logan leaned closer. No, I am focused. Dax sighed, rubbing his temples. All right. You want Ward's safe houses? His data pipelines? Fine. But once I give you that, I disappear, Logan finished for him. You never saw me. Dax nodded slowly. The war was bleeding upward, and Logan had just unlocked the next gate. By morning, Logan had what he needed, access to a dormant data hub used by Argonne to move funds and erase identities. Hidden inside a defunct weapons firm on the East Coast. He stood outside a cheap motel off the interstate, wind whipping through the pine trees. The morning sun glinted off his car, but his focus was on the tablet in his hands. Evelyn's voice came through, tense. Ward is trying to regroup. A senator tried calling in favors last night. They are scared. Then we move now, Logan replied. I want the data. I want the location leaks. I want this empire gutted from the inside. You realize what will happen if we push too hard. They come after us, Logan said flatly. Let them. He paused, then added, you should walk away. Before they trace this back to you. Evelyn's silence lasted longer than usual. Then she said, I have watched them destroy innocent people. Men like you. I will not walk away again. Logan closed his eyes briefly. He had spent months alone, carving revenge from shadows. Now, for the first time, someone else was choosing to stand beside him. All right, he said. Let us finish this. He sent Dax's files to Evelyn's secure server, and within hours, 2 more names popped up on the network radar, senior officials who had protected Ward's movement for years. Targets. Logan packed his gear, checked his weapon, and stared at the maps spread across his dashboard. 3 more names. 3 more ghosts. And then it would all end. But Logan knew. The closer he got to the center, the more deadly the silence would become. The facility looked like an abandoned manufacturing site from the outside. Rusted gates, faded signage, ivy crawling up crumbling brick. But beneath the surface, Logan knew, it housed a living nerve center for Argonne's darkest operations. He crouched behind a concrete wall as the last of the perimeter guards rotated their post. Night had fallen, and the rain masked his approach. Silently, he scaled the side of the building, slipped in through a ventilation shaft, and lowered himself into the beast. Inside, the hallway was sterile, polished, dimly lit, humming with power. Logan's boots made no sound on the linoleum as he moved past server rooms, humming panels, surveillance monitors. He paused at a locked terminal labeled ARX-0, the core node. He wired Gray into the system from a secure wrist pad. You are in, Gray whispered. Download everything. Fast. Logan attached the decryption drive and began pulling files. The screen flickered. Names. Logs. Payment routes. Blackmail archives. He scanned line after line, but then he froze. There it was. Brielle Pierce. Not a pawn. A handler. Her file was marked Primary Liaison, Operation Emberline. Logan's hand clenched into a fist. She had been more than involved. She had been one of them. The betrayal hit him harder than bullets ever could. Not only had she destroyed his marriage, she had built it on top of deception from day one. Gray's voice crackled. Logan, are you seeing this? He did not answer. He just stared at her file, his chest rising and falling in slow, deep breaths. Then he pulled the drive. The world he thought he had already exposed was just a cover. This was deeper, older, rot hiding beneath rot. And now, it had a name, and a face he once kissed goodnight. Back in a safe house far outside Boston, Logan threw the decrypted files across the table. Evelyn sat across from him, her eyes scanning every page, her expression turning from tense to furious. She was a handler, Logan said quietly, assigned to infiltrate, gain proximity, marry if needed. They used my own life to protect their secrets. Evelyn slammed a document to the table. This means Brielle was not just complicit. She recruited others. While sleeping next to me, Logan said bitterly. She cooked breakfast while planning surveillance against me. Evelyn looked up. You are going to want justice. But we need strategy first. I have waited long enough, Logan snapped. Then wait one day longer, she countered. There is a Senate intelligence hearing tomorrow. If we leak this, the public spotlight will make Argonne bleed. They will not risk moving her until the chaos dies down. Logan's jaw worked silently, his body tense. Let me be clear, Evelyn said. Brielle is not just another traitor. She is the thread that can unravel all of Argonne. You want justice? Let me make her useful first. Logan said nothing. Instead, he stood and walked to the window, staring into the wind-carved night. He saw Brielle smile. Her voice. Her betrayal. He closed his eyes and breathed through the storm inside his chest. She played me, he said finally. So I will play her back. And when it was over, when she had served her use, there would be nothing left for her to hide behind. The following morning, Evelyn barely escaped with her life. Logan was across town when the call came. She had gone to meet a confidential source, a whistleblower who once helped transport black site detainees for Argonne. The meeting was supposed to be safe. It was a trap. A black SUV rammed Evelyn's car off the road outside a closed gas station. Shots were fired. The source was killed on impact. But Evelyn, bloodied and cornered, managed to get to a side alley before collapsing. Logan arrived 10 minutes later. She was crouched behind a dumpster, blood dripping from a gash in her leg, pistol shaking in her hand. He knelt beside her. You are bleeding. No kidding, she muttered. Logan helped her up, threw her arm over his shoulder, and carried her to the car. They are done hiding, she said, pain making her voice crack. This means the leak worked. They are panicking. He loaded her in, slammed the door, and floored the gas. Back at the safe house, Logan stitched the wound himself while Evelyn clenched her jaw and drank bourbon to stay conscious. They know it is us now, she whispered. Logan looked her in the eyes. Let them come. You are not going to walk away from this. I never planned to. Their eyes held. In that moment, she was no longer just an ally. She was part of this war, and maybe the only person left who understood what it cost. Outside, thunder rolled again, and in the distance, a reckoning was coming. The footage hit the internet at exactly 10 a.m. A curated leak. Clean audio. Timestamped files. Redacted names blurred just enough to keep the public guessing, but enough truth to make the world stop. The headline blazed across every screen. Whistleblower reveals black budget operation infiltrating U.S. military intelligence. Codename Argonne. Inside a secure safe house in Maryland, Logan and Evelyn watched as the views skyrocketed. Every 5 seconds, New headlines rolled in. Senators issued statements. Whistleblower protection programs scrambled. The president's press secretary canceled her morning briefing without explanation. Evelyn looked pale, still stitched up and moving stiffly from the crash. We hit them where it hurts. Now they bleed in public. But Logan was not celebrating. He stared at the screen, jaw clenched, eyes cold. Because she was still out there. Brielle. And Logan had seen her name in those documents one too many times. He pulled out a USB, not part of the leak. A separate file. One that showed Brielle had booked a flight to Geneva. Under a different name. Tomorrow morning. He looked at Evelyn. They are going to exfil her. Which means she is still useful to them, Evelyn muttered. If we take her before they do, we end this, Logan said. Not with a file. Not with another headline. But face to face. Brielle was not just a traitor. She was the architect of the betrayal. And Logan intended to tear down her last illusion. Herself. The airport was under surveillance, but not from Logan. He sat across from Gate C9 in a hoodie and tactical jeans, eyes fixed on the private flight manifest. He had paid a janitor $5,000 for a time-stamped access badge. He had a 10-minute window to move before her security detail arrived. He did not need 10. Through tinted shades, he spotted her. Black trench coat, sunglasses, calm expression. Exactly as she had looked during their honeymoon in Cabo. She walked like she had nothing to fear. She had no idea. Logan moved with precision, entering the VIP gate lounge just as she sat alone, waiting for the boarding call. Brielle, he said quietly. She turned. Her sunglasses slid down her nose. Logan. He stepped closer. No gun. No mask. Just a man she thought she destroyed. You are not running, he said. Brielle blinked, slow and careful. You should not be here. He leaned down, eyes inches from hers. Neither should you. Behind him, a soft click. Evelyn stepped into the room with a suppressed pistol, aimed at the only guard outside. Logan never looked away from Brielle. You lied, he said. To the world. To me. And you still think you can escape this? Brielle's voice cracked. It was not supposed to go this far. Logan's voice turned to ice. You went this far the moment you used our marriage to cover your crimes. Outside, the boarding alert chimed. But Brielle did not move. Because Logan had just pulled a small recording device from his coat. I want you to confess. Not for the media. Not for the court. He leaned in. For me. For a long moment, Brielle said nothing. Then she exhaled and took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were not cold, not angry. They were tired. She looked down at the recorder in Logan's hand. I did it, she whispered. Logan's jaw twitched. Say it clearly. She lifted her chin, met his eyes. I was part of Argonne. I was assigned to marry you. I fed intel. I corrupted evidence. I destroyed careers. And I betrayed you. Because they told me you were too loyal. That one day, you would be a threat. Logan's hands tightened into fists. Evelyn stood silent behind them, weapons still raised, frozen in shock. I fell for you anyway, Brielle continued. But I could not stop. I was too far in. And when you caught me, it was too late. Logan's throat felt like sandpaper. You destroyed my life. I know, she said. Her voice was quiet, but real. And it was over. Logan stood back, recording in hand. You will not get on that plane. Brielle did not argue. 2 federal agents entered the lounge moments later, summoned by Evelyn's burner call just before they arrived. They placed Brielle in handcuffs. She did not resist. As they walked her away, Logan turned to the window and stared at the plane she never boarded. He should have felt victory, but all he felt was silence. Evelyn walked to his side. You did it. No, Logan whispered. Not yet. Because Argonne still existed. And its heart had not stopped beating. But after today, it was bleeding. And Logan would not stop until it bled out. Back in the safe house, Logan and Evelyn stood over the decrypted files like detectives at a crime scene. The air felt thicker now. The betrayal heavier. Brielle's confession had triggered a chain reaction. Evelyn pointed to a set of recurring characters buried deep inside Argonne's operational logs. It is a pattern. This string of letters keeps appearing every few days. Same time, same format. Logan narrowed his eyes. Encrypted signals? She nodded. Code-level communications between internal servers. I think it is a countdown. Or a kill switch. Logan leaned in. The sequence repeated like a heartbeat. VX07. Initiate shutdown. 72 HR sync enabled. Evelyn's face paled. This is a blackout protocol. They are wiping the network. If they purge the system, Logan said, there will be no more evidence. No more names. They go dark forever. She tapped furiously at her keyboard. We have 48 hours left before the mainframe goes dead. After that, Argonne becomes a ghost story. Logan stared at the screen. A slow exhale. He had not come this far to let them disappear into shadows again. We stop it, he said, and we make sure the world sees who they really are. Evelyn looked up, uncertain. Logan's voice was sharper now. Stronger. We end this. Publicly. Logan's boots splashed through a shallow alley puddle as he ducked behind a loading truck in downtown Philadelphia. Evelyn had traced the next data transfer to a disguised tech courier, a man in a blue service uniform carrying a hard case with top-level clearance. He was scheduled to drop off the drive at an embassy-protected relay hub. Logan had no intention of letting it get there. The courier emerged at exactly 4:05 p.m., moving fast across the sidewalk. Logan intercepted him in the service tunnel behind the building, one hand grabbing the courier's shoulder, the other already pressing a silenced pistol to his ribs. Hand it over, Logan said. The courier froze. You do not know what you are doing. Logan shoved him against the wall. I know exactly what I am doing. He snatched the case and opened it. Inside, 2 encrypted hard drives, one with a red label. Praxis Core, final stage. Evelyn's voice came through the earpiece. That is it. That is the core mirror. Logan checked the ID chip in the courier's neckband, embedded with a GPS beacon. They are tracking him, Logan muttered. Then get out. Now. But Logan saw something else. A return slip. Coordinates to a facility outside Richmond. A location. A final base. And possibly the last safe house of Argonne's leadership. Logan looked at the courier. Tell them I am coming. Then he disappeared into the shadows, with the final code in his hand. That night, Evelyn's name hit the dark web. She had been exposed. An anonymous black market bounty of $1.2 million placed on her head. The contract used a burn alias, but Logan knew what it meant. Argonne had activated every ghost in its network. Kill her. Silence her. And erase the last public link. Evelyn slammed her fist against the wall. We stayed quiet. We planned every leak. How did they find me? Logan paced the room. Someone inside the agency leaked it. Argonne is bleeding. And this is their panic move. Evelyn sat heavily on the edge of the desk, breath shallow. I can disappear, she whispered. I have protocols. Places. No, Logan said, stepping in front of her. You are not running. If I stay, if you run now, everything we built falls apart. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed, but determined. You are right, she said. Then we go loud. Logan nodded. We hijack their silence. We use the truth the way they used lies. Because sometimes, the only way to destroy monsters was to expose them to the light. The next morning, Logan walked into a satellite station posing as a telecom engineer. He wore a stolen badge, a forged signature, and a live broadcast trigger in his coat. Evelyn was already patched into the signal. From that moment forward, every military base, every classified terminal, and every media station on the feed grid would receive what Logan was about to show. The truth. He reached the control room, inserted the drive, and hit play. On every screen in every base, Brielle's confession began, followed by audio tapes, footage of cover-ups, files from Praxis Core. One by one, names of generals, senators, intelligence officers, all linked to Argonne, scrolled across the screen. Inside the control room, technicians panicked. Outside, Red sirens wailed. But Logan stood still, watching it all burn, one broadcast at a time. The silence was finally over. And now? It was Argon that had nowhere left to hide. The world did not sleep that night. Argon's secrets spilled into every news cycle, every live feed, every closed-door session. The footage Logan uploaded was undeniable. The public saw faces, documents, orders, betrayal hidden behind medals and titles. But the exposure triggered something worse. A final protocol. Evelyn sat beside Logan inside the mobile command unit, a black SUV fitted with encrypted systems. Her face was pale, voice tight. They activated Contingency 0. Logan looked over. What is that? It is their final defense. A targeted blackout, taking down infrastructure, crashing digital archives, even detonating classified storage hubs. They will destroy everything, including themselves. They would rather burn the truth than face it. Evelyn nodded grimly. We have 36 hours. Then the core will wipe. Logan pulled up the satellite scans of Richmond. This ends where it started. A silent compound surrounded by forest. Steel gates. Buried servers. Men with no names. Argon's command bunker. Logan stared at it. No more backdoors. No more leaks. Just one final assault. One last mission. Evelyn placed a GPS tracker on the table. This time, we go in together. Logan nodded, and the countdown began. At 0300 hours, under a crescent moon, Logan and Evelyn approached the perimeter fence. The Argon compound rose from the trees like a beast with no face, silent, brutal, heavily guarded. Drones circled overhead. Thermal sensors swept the grounds. Logan adjusted his vest and checked his suppressed rifle. Evelyn synchronized her wrist pad, uplinking to Gray's satellite feed. He has the surveillance loop frozen for 9 minutes, she whispered. Logan nodded. That is all we need. They slipped through the breach in the fence, moving fast and low. Evelyn disabled 2 guards with tranquilizer darts. Logan took down a patrol silently, with brutal precision. They reached the main door. Keypad locked. Biometric scanner. Evelyn reached into her coat and pulled out a severed key chip from a captured agent's glove. It worked. The door hissed open. Inside, cold white corridors stretched ahead, lined with server rooms and weapons storage. The heart of Argon's intelligence core. They moved fast, sweeping room by room. But then alarms. Logan spun. A guard spotted them. Shots fired. Glass shattered. Logan returned fire, taking out 2 hostiles in seconds. Evelyn dove behind a terminal, plugging in the drive. Downloading everything, she shouted. We need 90 seconds. Logan covered her, chest pounding, jaw clenched. He knew they would not get another shot at this. This was it. Smoke filled the corridors. Gunfire echoed through the concrete halls. Logan's clip ran dry. He switched to his sidearm, heart racing. Evelyn, he yelled. Almost there, she screamed, typing through sparks and flickering lights. The servers began to shut down, line by line. But before the data could purge, Evelyn ripped the main drive from its cradle and shoved it into her vest pocket. We got it. Just then, an explosion rocked the far wing. The facility was collapsing from inside. Self-destruction. Argon was taking itself down. Logan grabbed Evelyn's arm. Move. They sprinted down the tunnel as flames erupted behind them. Concrete chunks fell. Lights failed. Sirens wailed in red and white chaos. They burst out of the compound just as the bunker imploded behind them, a plume of fire chasing them across the gravel lot. They dove behind an armored vehicle. Silence followed. Smoke curled upward into the breaking dawn. Evelyn lay on her back, coughing. We did it. Logan stared at the wreckage. No, he said quietly. We survived it. They had the drive. They had the truth. But now, they had a world watching. And it was time to finish what began the day his wife betrayed him. The drive sat on the podium like a ticking heart. News crews surrounded the makeshift briefing tent outside D.C., floodlights cutting through the early morning mist. Senators, analysts, survivors, and former operatives now stood shoulder to shoulder to witness what few thought possible: the fall of Argonne. Logan stood behind the microphone, in a simple black shirt, no medals, no mask, no uniform. Just a man who had been broken, betrayed, and rebuilt from the ashes of his own life. Evelyn nodded at him from the side, her legs still wrapped from the bunker collapse. Behind her, monitors began displaying the names of every victim, every manipulated mission, every family destroyed, every soldier used and discarded. Logan stepped forward. "My name is Logan Pierce," he began, voice steady. "And for years, I served this country with loyalty, discipline, and silence." He looked out over the crowd, until silence was the weapon used against me. Murmurs passed through the press rows. They tried to erase my story. They used my marriage, my love, my life. And when I found the truth, they tried to bury that too. He held up the drive. "But this is the truth. Unedited, unfiltered, and irreversible." Then, he connected it to the central feed. Data spilled onto the global networks in real time. Evidence of human trafficking, arms deals, political blackmail, all hidden under the name Argonne. And with every screen that lit up across the world, the foundation of their deception cracked further. Somewhere in the back, a woman wept. Someone else clapped. And slowly, the crowd stood, applauding not just Logan, but justice. After all the darkness, light had finally won. The lesson: 3 months later, a warm breeze drifted over the Colorado cabin porch. Logan stood with a cup of black coffee, watching the wind move through the pine trees. He was home, for real this time. No more aliases, no more surveillance, no more war. Evelyn stepped out beside him, healed, quiet, peaceful. "I cannot believe it is over. It had to end," Logan said, "or it would have ended us." They sat together in silence, not the silence of secrets, but of peace. In the distance, 2 local kids played in the grass. Free, safe. Logan finally allowed himself to breathe. His phone buzzed once. A news notification: Global Tribunal issues arrest warrants against 17 former officials linked to Argonne Network. Justice was still unfolding, and the world would never forget. But most importantly, Logan would never forget what it taught him. Sometimes, the most dangerous betrayal is the one that wears love as a disguise. But no matter how deep the lie, truth always finds its way back to light. He turned to Evelyn. "Thank you." "For what?" she asked. "For standing with me when I had nothing left." She smiled. "Everyone deserves at least one person who does not walk away." And with that, they stood, together, ready to start over, not as survivors, but as people who had reclaimed their lives, with truth, fire, and resolve. Now I want to ask you something deeply honest. If you were in Logan's place, would you forgive? Or would you burn the whole system down just like he did? Let us know which part of the world you are watching from in the comments. We always love seeing how far our stories reach. If this story moved you, even for a moment, please like and subscribe to support these true-to-heart thrillers. It means the world. Thank you.